Shalom Alaikum viewers, my channel Islam versus Christianity versus Judaism. I'm Nicholas Mansfield, and the presentation today is concerned with the matter of the Ark of the Covenant, which was a central piece of the furniture in the Mosaic tabernacle long ago, when the law of Israel was given and a process of sacrificial ordinances were decreed. All these things accompanied the Israelites in their journeys, and later on, when they entered the land of Israel, they came to reside really in a place which was set by God in northern Israel. It was only later on that David took them into Jerusalem, and his son Solomon established a temple there in the heart of Jerusalem on the what we know as the Mount of Zion, also known as Mount Moriah. But what happened later on, there were a series of kings who turned away from God, and it resulted in a conquest by the Babylonians, and there were a series of events 597 BC thereabouts. The Israelites, the remnant of Israel, Judah, the Jews, they suffered a loss to the Babylonians, who entered the city and took some of the things from the first temple built by Solomon. But we believe that the Ark of the Covenant was still there and unmolested. What happened afterwards, 10 years later, there was a second siege of the city, much more dramatic, and this time the Jews put up a lot more resistance, and the Babylonians really had enough of this, so they took many Jews into captivity, and they laid waste to the city. They destroyed the temple. But what we understand from the apocryphal writings from the book of Maccabees is that it was a known fact later on that the prophet Jeremiah had organized the removal of the Ark of the Covenant from the first temple, and that it was taken somewhere under the labyrinth of tunnels in Jerusalem, so that the Babylonians never found that, although they took most of everything else. There were some of the items of the furniture basically within the temple which were also removed, and these things are known to this day by the people in the Temple Institute. If you look up online on the Temple Institute site, these Jews acknowledge the fact that they know where the Ark is, and there's also knowledge that some of the items from that first temple beside the Ark were also kept. So we're going to examine the course of history, starting from those 2 points in time. These 2 points in time, 597, 587, give us a time frame. There were 10 years that were decreed for the law that was broken, for the 10 commandments, the 10 Devarim. Moses received these on tablets. And when he returned to the Israelites from the mountain where he conversed with God directly, there was a terrible thing that had happened called the sin of the golden calf. This is covered in the Quran to some degree, but it's quite a focused series of writings in the Quran and Surah Baqarah, which examine this, and there were great consequences for Israel. One needs to study the Mosaic Torah and do an in-depth study to understand the importance of all these things and where this presentation is going. I shall read from my purports here on the matter. This is a follow-up to the introduction that I made in my previous presentation. And we will also examine some of the writings of Daniel to see what was really going on. It is critical to understand that Yehovah had one purpose in re-establishing the Hebrews with the second temple, also known as a Herodian temple later, and without the Ark of the Testimony. Refer to Daniel 9:24, 2nd Maccabees 2, verses 4 to 7. The scroll of Daniel in the 9th chapter deals with the approach of the 70th year for the Babylonians from the great destruction of Jerusalem, see Rashi on Daniel 9:2, and her temple, Jeremiah 29:10. By introducing a three-tiered or three-layered prophecy. The prophecy of periods of time concerned with what was contemporaneous and what will shortly be and what will be at the end of the age. Daniel supplicates Yehovah God so that his countenance may shine forth once more over the desolation of the sacred place. That's from Daniel 9:17. Daniel writes, this is a message from the angel Gabriel, 70 weeks of years allotted onto your people and onto your holy city to restrain the opposition to law, even to seal up all sins, and to atone for wickedness, and to usher in a righteousness for all the ages, and hence seal vision and prophecy, and to anoint the Holy of Holies. So that was Daniel 9, verse 24. I shall read a breakdown of Daniel 9:25 in two parts, 125a, 125b. 25a, and you must also know and understand it is from the origin of a word going forth unto a restoration. 25b, and to a rebuilt Jerusalem until an anointed prince is to be 62 weeks and 7 weeks. These are weeks of years. She shall be restored and rebuilt, street and dry moat, even in the constraint of those eras. Now, some notes on Daniel 9:24. The Holy of Holies is actually the Ark of the Covenant being mentioned here, although there is an ambiguity present, since the Most Holy Place is also known by the same Hebrew term in the Tanakh, the Old Testament. During the ordinance of Atonement Day, Yom Kippur, the high priest performed the rituals in accordance with Torah in the Holy of Holies, and the sacrifice was known to be accepted every time the lot came up in the right hand, and the crimson strap turned white, and the westernmost light shone on, despite having been kindled first and not topped up. See Leviticus 16:5-10, Isaiah 1:18, Babylonian Talmud, Seder Moed, Mas Yoma 39a-b. But the miracles ceased 40 years before the second desolation. As it is written, he shall cause a refrain of sacrifice and oblation. See Daniel 9:27. The ark could not be used in the second temple because it was doomed. Therefore it was never brought out of seclusion. The ark had one side reserved for the ordinances from Moses and Aaron onward, but the other side was for the Messiah alone. This is the secret of the writings in the Torah and the mystery revealed by what the Pharushim, the Pharisees, recorded hundreds of years after the destruction, as their numbers dwindled and the knowledge started to dissipate. Now, going back to Daniel, there is a period of time allotted unto the holy city, being 70 weeks of years, 70 times 7, 490 years, a well-attested biblical construction, to restrain the opposition to law, even to seal up all sin and to atone for wickedness, and to usher in a righteousness for all the ages, and hence seal up the vision and prophecy of those who were sent of Israel as God's messengers, and to anoint the Ark of the Covenant, also known as the Holy of Holies. See Leviticus 16:14, Daniel 9:24, and it is decreed that we must also know and understand it is from the origin of a word going forth unto a restoration. It is a sum total of another 70 years from the word to Jeremiah that he must remove the ark, according to our references in Daniel and Maccabees, unto the second Herodian temple, and to a rebuilt Jerusalem, and to an anointed prince, or Prince Messiah. This is how it should be read, although it is ambiguous in the Hebrew. It's not saying the Messiah, it's saying an anointed prince. This is how it would have been read in the context of the day, but in hindsight we can understand now, after an intense examination of all the Tanakh and the remnant of history that is recorded, that it is in fact talking about one prince who is to be king over Israel. Now, till the time of the anointed prince is to be 62 and 7 weeks. She shall be restored and rebuilt, street and dry moat, even in the constraint of those eras. According to Daniel 9:25b, we shall see how this implies that the basic sanctuary, the city walls, and the various gates are rebuilt by the fulfillment of the double exile and return 70-year period commencing 597 BC, but the revival of buildings and greater engineering works actually take place during a more extended period, and in a time of continuing conflict as accounted in the Apocrypha and other historic records. The mainstream Christian theologians purposely mistranslate the text to read, "The street shall be built again and the wall," even in troublous times. See the KJV. Their lies are necessary to support the proposition that the final week of years was fulfilled in that early era, not according to the later one. They use the conflation of Kings and Nehemiah, muddling the chronology as a means to an end. Now here we witness an amazing sequence of prophecy, but firstly we must ask, who is this anointed prince? Can we confirm? At the Semitic root of this word for prince, being one of renown, is a report, so that it might also be read as an anointed one whose report is made known. Compare this to Isaiah 53:1. Lineage of Zerubbabel ben Shealtiel is thus: for he was a prince in waiting, although none of his line ever actually reigned again over Judea, let alone Israel. Other kings of Judah reigned, those who could not be legitimate candidates for Messiah through their alternative lineage. Here again we must come back to Genesis 49:10 and Jacob's blessing to get an idea of the importance of that prophecy, that blessing. Why is it a blessing if it is not related to the Messiah himself and what he will do for his people? And this is everything that Daniel's prophesying in relation to the Holy of Holies and the ending of sin, so that an era of righteousness may be brought in. Now, I'll have to take a break here and follow up on the matter of the royal dominion over Israel from Genesis 49 and the blessing prophecy therein. We shall start to see some things coming together piece by piece in this incredible patchwork jigsaw. And if you want to hear about Zerubbabel, please return to the coverage earlier on in Matthew, the start of the Gospel, and my previous presentation. That's it for now. Shalom, viewers. In the name of God of Israel, Yehovah, Amen.